Hello and welcome. Thank you for being here today for our webinar. And today we're going to do an exploration of feminine and masculine and explore what is divine expression versus the cultural roles, because we all have so much imprinting about what is feminine, what is masculine, and like we get templated. And we have these expectations that we put on ourselves that we think that we need to fall into in order to fit the societal norms. And a lot of that just really isn't true to what we experience and feel of ourselves inside. So we're going to do some exploration around that today, around feminine, masculine, the divine or your innate versus the cultural roles. And then we're going to look at the divine expression. What is really the divine feminine, divine masculine, and how can we, through our unique blend of ourselves, of who we are and what we are, how can we bring that through in a way that is honoring of our truth and really tapping into that connection with the divine, that divinity within. So that is our mission today. If you do not have pen and paper, get pen and paper, and we're going to have you do some stream of consciousness writing around this and take a look back at what you've written, what writes through you. So let's come in. Let's go ahead and, let me just tell you who I am in case you don't know me. My name is Deborah Grenard. I am author of an upcoming book, soon to be Habiba, and this is Habiba Miller, and she's been helping me with this supposedly final run through of the book after it's in interior layout form. And so we're working on that, to being a tremendous help. Usually we have with us Kamala Wadad, who she is out. She's a musician and she has a show tonight. So she's not going to be with us in person tonight, but she is representing as she beautifully merges divine feminine and divine masculine on stage. So she's representing for us tonight in the public. So about the book, Habiba and Kamala Wadad and I are all, I'm the author of the book, and they are have gone through this book with me and done the process. The book has a 7-step healing process. That's a pretty deep healing process. And we're going to be offering a program, launching a program that goes with the book. And they have really stepped in to help me. They're going to be coaches in the program. And Habiba and Kamala are both incredible, beautiful healers in and of themselves. The book it's mostly for women who, as so many women do, feel unsafe in our bodies and really struggle with that feeling unsafe, using food as a crutch to help to self-soothe in the times when we feel unsafe for the various reasons. And then wrestling with all of the struggles that go along with that, right? So it's a book about healing. It's a book about transformation. It's a book about also looking to the future. Underneath our struggles, the struggles that pop up for us, the reason often why they become struggles is because we've got something very significant suppressed underneath them. That is our true essence, our true power, that was somewhere along the way told it's not safe to show up. And therein lies the struggle when we learn. So the book does a deep dive into, we start with 5 subconscious voices that really lock us into these patterns of discontent and patterns that, that keep us looping in our behaviors that we desperately want to change. So often desperately want to change and just, can't quite make the change. So it does a deep dive into looking at what are some of the things that are underlying, and doing introspection around that, bringing healing to those places, and then really understanding the journey of transformation and stepping through that, and then looking at the embodiment. how do we embody it and be the sacred essence, the divine feminine, which our world desperately needs right now in order to make this transition, this evolution into a higher level of consciousness that we are all right on the cusp of, I'll say, as things are seeming to fall apart. So the book was originally set to launch on March 7th, and then it was April 8th, and then it was May, and now it's June, and it might even be pushing into July because we keep finding, like, a little bit, an error here and an error there as things are coming together. So we want to make sure it is done right, done well, and a good user experience. And we decided that, like, we're ready. We're ready for the book to launch. We're ready to launch the program. And the time kept getting pushed back. So we said, all right, we don't want to wait anymore. Let's just get out there and start talking to people and sharing some of the things that are messages from the book. Tonight's call is one of the messages in the book: feminine, divine masculine, our cultural roles versus our innate truth versus that really deep divine essence and divine expression. So Habiba, we went a little bit longer than I planned there, but let me just let you introduce yourself to people.
Yeah. All good. I have to say I have been graced with being able to read the book and contribute to the editing process. And it is an experience. It really is. And so I'm here in gratitude to you, Deborah, for writing it in the first place and then for opening the invitation for us to join you in that process. I personally have been on a spiritual path most of my life. I was blessed with a mother who introduced me to meditation when I was a toddler and was very present to me in many, many ways. And then, of course, when I reached into my independence, I explored areas that she had never considered. And so anyway, we had this incredible spiritual journey, and she just passed about a year ago. But in that process and in the process of what Deborah has written about in this book, it is, it's the layers of healing that we go through in our lives. The opportunity for healing is rich, and it's always fascinating to me when I feel like I've done so much, and then I see another piece, and it's like, and the beauty of this is, and it's. I have two boys that are 20 and 25, and my goal as a parent was to empower them to be who they are. That was like my whole goal as a mother, was to empower them to be who they are. And it obviously, inspired me to grow in those ways of allowing myself to be as well, to break through some of these patterns and such that Deborah was just talking about. And this process is like opening even deeper layers of that to support that place of us being in the authentic truth of who we really are within our own hearts and our own souls, our own beings, and the way that expresses, etc. So I'm just thrilled to be on this journey with all of you, because that's part of the richness of it for me too, is doing my own work is one thing. Doing the whatever the work is that we're doing collectively is it's inspiring and exciting to me to see that we're evolving, it's happening and coming together and talking about it and opening the doors and exploring together, I think, is a huge part of that. So I'm super grateful to be here as a part of it.
Thank you. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you, for Kamala, for everybody here, and for everything that's coming together. It is just an incredible experience. And I love that, you talked about the evolution that we're going through. And that's one of the, okay, I'm going to save it. Already getting ahead, as I love to do. All right. So we're going to talk about that as we get into the process that we're going to do today. Let's go ahead and, before I give away the the end of the story here, let's go ahead and just come into our circle. Let's come into a circle. We're all, just imagine us all in one circle, sitting side by side, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, knee to knee, sitting together in a circle with our beautiful planet in the center and our beautiful Earth's atmosphere, our Mother Earth. As we connect in with her, and we connect in with the earth within us. My spiritual teacher, CD, used to always tell us, be the earth, be the earth, be the earth. So much in the meaning of that. Imagine that element of the Mother Earth, or the essence of the Mother Earth contained within you, and just let your heart connect to that as you feel that essence of the Mother Earth within you. And we call on our source, call on that essence of, let's call on the essence of the Mother Earth. That pure compassion, that grounded stability. And the Mother Earth it's like the life force and the life cycle. It holds us magnetically to her center. It feeds us, sustains us, and nourishes us. And it does contain that ever living and ever evolving life cycle through the minerals in the soil and the plants, the water that flows through the earth and also into the atmosphere, the air, the wind, the sunshine, the warmth, the animals, the humans, the human animals. And feel yourself really infused into that ecosystem and really connected with that essence of the earth. Feel how, as you breathe, that cycle of life force energy flows through you. And just feel, because what is in the earth is also in you. The wisdom of the earth, all of the laws of nature that govern how things flow and grow, and how the life cycle plays out on this Mother Earth. It's all contained within you. On the whole, and even on the microcosm, the macrocosm and the microcosm. Right? We constantly have cells that are being reborn and or new cells developing and old cells dying off, right? We have the life cycle playing out through our physical bodies, and we see that same cycle everywhere on the earth. And we're a part of the cycle of life and death and growth, of birth. But just feel yourself really connected in, and again, breathe in that essence of the Mother, the essence of the Mother Earth. And if you can, really feel yourself kind of upright your spine and align your spine, and imagine that your pure divine light coming through the top of your head and moving through your body, halfway front to back and halfway side to side, going through the very center of your body and through your head space, through your throat space, through your heart space, all the way through the very center, the very core of your body, through your solar plexus, through your belly space, through your base. And feel how this really connects the heavens to the earth, and feel that as it connects into the earth. And As it connects into the earth, just feel it go deeper, a little like 3 feet beneath the surface of the earth, connecting in with all of the minerals of the soil, going deeper, connecting in with the metals, and deeper, really connecting you and grounding you with the earth, and feel that wisdom of the earth now flowing back up through you. As the light of the heavens comes down through the top of your head and the wisdom of the earth comes up through your base, and just feel them merge and marry and connect inside of you. And take a full and gentle breath and breathe all of your energy into this vertical core where this merging is happening, and let yourself just like infuse into that and let that merging infuse into you the light of spirit and the wisdom of earth. And as you exhale, drop down, land into your hips, sit into your pelvic bowl, and let your conscious body upright into that vertical core and just be in that vibration of earth wisdom, light of spirit, just merging and infusing into you. And breathe that in, breathe it in, breathe it in, breathe it in. Let it breathe through you. And as you're ready, I'm going to start with our questions, and we can perhaps from this connected space. I want to, if you have your pen and paper, I'll give you a minute to pick that up. And I'm going to ask you to take your first piece of paper and draw a line down the center. So you have 2 columns. You have line down the center. The left column, you can write feminine, and the right column at the top of it, write masculine. And I'm going to give about a minute for each one of these questions. But the first question is, if you connect in with that feminine column, and when you think of feminine, just feminine in general, and this is really looking at like the cultural imprint, the cultural overlays. When you think of feminine, what are the images or thoughts, or, just like, what is it about feminine that comes up for you? And take a minute and we'll do just stream of consciousness writing. What is that for you? And I'll tell you when it's time to stop and just let it roll. Okay. Take a deep breath. Was that enough time? Okay. We'll just say take a deep breath. And now we're going to look at the masculine column. And same thing, stream of consciousness. What comes up for you when you hear the word masculine? And go. Just write down that right column, all the things that come up. Okay. So again, take a breath. So no hard, fast rules here. If you're still thinking of things to write down, it's okay to keep going. We're going to go ahead and move into our next piece.
So, what we're going to invite you to do now is to take a moment and sit with what you've written. Look at the pieces there that are sort of the cultural aspects of masculine and feminine. And take a moment to go into your being, your person, and see which of those you have identified with. Which of those stand out for you as things that you have associated with? And put a star next to those. Okay, thank you, Terry. I just saw your hand raised there. So as we're walking through our life and our, day to day, and you can look at this. So we're going to be going into deeper processes as well with this, and obviously we'll open up the space for people to share. But as far as how you're associating with, so I'll just use myself as an example. Some of the things that I wrote down were, the imagery that is associated with the feminine in our culture that, has us. Our bodies being a certain figure, the images that are connected with that, and I used to relate to those, but not so much anymore. Um, and that's there's another piece to that part of the journey. But on the flip side, one of the other things that came up for me is the mother. So, that that feminine, uh, is connected with being a mother, and that's one that I definitely identify with. So that's the one that I would put a star by of those two examples. So and again, there's no right or wrong to any of this. This is, we're just inviting you to reflect, and there will be more that we'll share as we go further with it. And then, yeah, and do that both with masculine and feminine. Like I associated more with the masculine than I did with the feminine when it comes to the cultural. So, yeah, culture has given us some very interesting journeys with that.
Yes. Yeah, I did stream of consciousness writing online. I don't think I can share. I mean, it's just
We'll share later when we get to the flip side of the coin too.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really strange what came up in stream of consciousness, but it's like, wow, those really are associations I have. And like, typically I mean, we have spent a lot of time talking about this in our meetings about, um, divine feminine. And that's not what came up.
Interesting.
Yeah. The
Look forward
things
to
that,
hearing that.
yeah. Well, I don't know if I want to, I mean, actually, it's pretty like, it's almost like images of television shows were more like, the images. And I know that I'm pretty influenced by television these days. So I guess that's not a surprise in that respect. But it's interesting how that really does get into the psyche and imprint the psyche on the deep levels, even though you think you're doing the deeper work and tapping into, um, something a little closer to the essence, and then hit that stream of consciousness, and there it is.
Well, and I'm actually realizing as you're saying that, Deborah, that one of the ways that you can look at your associations is who are the role models. Like if you look at who are the people you see as feminine,
Mhm.
who are the people you see as masculine, it might give you more insight into those qualities as well.
Yeah. Well, that actually takes us into our next segment. So why don't we go ahead and go into that? Because, now we want to look at, before we share, we want to look at now when we do take it into that, like tapping into the divine feminine, what is the expression of the divine feminine? What is the expression of divine masculine? Right. And, when we think of it in terms of archetype, the archetype of the feminine is that state of being, that state of receptivity, that state of, what holds a, a like a container that is unifying and connecting. When we think of the masculine, the divine masculine, it's that which goes out, that which is in action, that which is in doing, right? Moving. It's the actor versus the beer, and the feminine being the receptive, and that whole thing about receptive and giving on feminine and masculine. When we think of it in terms of just relationship, it's very easy to say, but um, that doesn't really fit. But when we look at it from the perspective of divinity, the feminine in that state of being that holds that container that is unifying and, like brings the opposites together in a state of unity, that is really the feminine nature. And in doing like that is that nature that connects us with source and with all that is. So, from the perspective of the divine feminine, like, that is like the receiving is really that receiving from that connection with source. And the divine masculine is as moving out in the world, holding that space of protection for this like download of source, or this essence of source within. So as, when you think of inner feminine and inner masculine that you hold inside of yourself, it's like that part of you that connects and really receives from that connection with source and holds that space of that is unifying of the opposites. That masculine is that which protects that space as you move into your doing, into action. So, yeah, good question. BJ says, where does our understanding of divine feminine and masculine come from? From society also? So that's a really good question. And actually, I think before we answer that, or before we, give our input on that, right? I'm not saying that we have all the 100% end all be all answers, because it's, that's why we're here to reflect together. But I love that question. So before we respond to that, though, if you have another piece of paper, or if you have space on the same paper, you maybe draw a line at the bottom of where you left off there. What are some role models when you think of what is divine feminine? Take a minute first with feminine, and then we'll do masculine. But as divine feminine, think of like, what are the role models? Where do you get your images or your, ideas about what divine feminine is? And this can be, it can be people that exist. It can be characters. It can be, characteristics. It can be, like spiritual, or people from your spiritual texts, or whatever. But I'm going to stop talking and give you some time to write, what are the role models or images of divine feminine? Okay, and if you haven't already, move to the side of the divine masculine and just listing what are your role models or images of divine masculine.
And then as you're ready, I invite you to, in a similar way, to really sit with your innate being, the place in you that feels like your truest sense of self. And look at those divine traits, those divine characteristics. Look at which ones resonate for you, or which ones perhaps you aspire to embody from those role models or from those traits or characteristics that came through. And in the same way that we did before, just put a star next to any of those that really stand out for you as true for you or that you want to be. And again, with both the feminine and the masculine, because we all carry both. And this may be a process that is ongoing for you as things continue to bubble up and show themselves. What we want to invite you to do tonight is to look at what came up for you just in this process. And if you're open to sharing, again, because in the sharing, we sometimes will hear or see or experience things that maybe we didn't on our own. So it's a beautiful way for us to inspire each other in our healing processes. But I invite you to share and similar to what we did last week, for those of you who are here, I want to just kind of lay it out for those who weren't. When you share, we would ask you to sort of let us know, are you coming from a place of, hey, I had something come up and I need to empty? So that we can just hold the space for you to be able to do that. And in that place, the point for us is to hold a container for you to be able to share what's on your heart. If you are needing support, make sure you ask for that. And obviously we'll be listening for that as well. And or just share your insights. What came up, there's all kinds of revelations that might be showing themselves as well. So feel free to say you're sharing. So the floor is open for anybody who wants to jump in.
Thank you. And okay. So can I say one thing, BJ, before you get started? Because what's really what I'm feeling as I'm like writing the things that are, that I'm desire to embody, like I'm feeling that actually like that presence come up in me, and it feels really like an opportunity while this is really coming up. I want to invite it to like really seep into my cellular consciousness and take hold and anchor there. So if it's coming up for you, I just invite you to do that. Like if this is, yeah, this is what I feel like when I'm in my strength, when I'm in like the highest that I really aspire to, this is what it feels like. Let your cells really take that in, take that snapshot of that state and like bring it into the cellular consciousness so you have a really strong feeling anchored in you. Okay. And let you go ahead, BJ.
Thank you. So in terms of my role model, I was just picturing a woman with wings and breasts, and that's, so that's divine to me. If you've got wings and breasts, that's for the woman. And for the man, perfection, I was picturing Michelangelo's classic drawing with the circle and everything's in order and everything. And I thought, wow, that's a little bit much to expect of everybody, to be like that, or for the women to have wings, the divine woman. So when I look back at the things I put stars by, I came across a feeling of Marilyn Monroe was one of the people that I thought, why is it that Marilyn Monroe keeps coming up for me? Well, I think feminine has flowing skirts and breastfeeding, and I haven't had children, so I don't think of that very often, but flowing skirts I do. And I was thinking that for me, I would like to be more flowing, more sensual, and then I thought, I don't want to deceive anybody, but the sensuality doesn't usually come out for me. I'm usually more the logical, let's get to the next point, let's move along sort of thing. And so there's a part of me that wants that heart space of flowing. And yet I realized that there's somebody that I know that has a lot of that femininity, what I'm kind of over exaggerating now. And it brings up a little jealousy in me. And I've been trying to figure out what it is that brings up this discomfort. And now, so it's just giving me not something to lock onto, like you were saying, Deborah, because it's still an exploration for me of what is it? Is it that she moves so beautifully in that space that I don't? Mm-hmm. And so I am interested in this aspect of who I am. When I came into the class, I thought I'm comfortable with who I am. This is, male, female, I'm a kind of a mixture, but I'm now thinking,
BJ, I forgot to add you. Can I add you to the screen so we can see you better?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm about through.
That's okay. We still get to see you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just, that's some of my thoughts about the flowing of, and of course I had Jesus on there for a role model, and I didn't have a counter one except Marilyn Monroe on the other side, and I don't even know why, except that she was sweet. Her appearance was sweet and humble, and I don't know that that's who she is, but I'm just saying that's one of the things. Mm-hmm. And men were attracted to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, BJ. I saw a documentary about Marilyn Monroe. Have you seen that? It actually gave me a whole different feel and a whole different flavor for who she was. And, because we can look at her and her, sexuality that she, led with in her roles. But when you see who she is and why she adopted that, like that was the only way that she could get noticed. And she almost made a joke out of it with okay, guys, if this is what you want, I'm going to bring it over the top. And sure enough, it did get her to land the roles and to be, everything that she became. But then she did it almost in a mocking way to kind of show that, I don't know how to say that, but
I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop and
thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Alima, where'd you go? add you to the screen. Is that okay? You're welcome to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just can't come on camera.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll hold your beautiful photo there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. So really interesting. Not really so surprising, but what I found amusing is that, I really appreciated Rebecca's sharing because I resonated with quite a bit of it. And what I was going to say, the amusing part was the people, like the role models. I came up with either like CD, our guide, our sheikh, Prophet Muhammad, that no surprise there. But then I came up with celebrities. I thought that was kind of funny. Richard Gere, Eddie Murphy, Hugh Jackman, Tony Robbins. I don't know. I mean, I don't, that's probably from a past something or other, but I always felt like, I guess it's that, putting yourself out into the world kind of thing, that I resonated with Tony Robbins. But on the other side, more like Rebecca, well, first of all, Fauzia. If anyone doesn't know Fauzia, was our guide, my sheikh, who taught me Islam and Sufism. She really holds a beautiful pole. Yeah, Mr. knows
Yeah.
about how the masculine and feminine are together. And one of the beautiful things I got to experience was her husband was there in Morocco when I was there. So I got to see like firsthand how that meshed together. So the other part that I resonated with Rebecca, I wrote, I see the feminine as dancing and flowing and graceful and movement. I associated the sensuality of a belly dancer, which also Fauzia, wrote a book about belly dance and had practiced it for many years from her grandmother. Um, I also got Moses's mother, Khadijah, and Hajar and Sarah. And one of our teachers in our healing school and my practices is Salima Edelstein. And let's see. So the feminine qualities weren't really a surprise: mothering, affectionate, home earth. And then the masculine, well, funny, supportive came in both. I have men for justice. And those are the things. Oh, yeah. And I don't know. I think Eddie Murphy. I think it's like humor. I think of Coming to America and some of the
Yep.
other other movies that he was in. That just kind of like the funny masculine, but yet, grounding and loving. So that's kind of what I came up with.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Mister, I'm going to let
Okay.
you run the highlighting people because
Okay. I got it. All right. So we have Travis next and then Gaby. So Travis, I'm going to add you to the screen. Is that okay? Okay. And I'll let you unmute yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. I kind of resonated with a little bit of what everyone said. Mr. Like you, I as far as like the row of feminine and masculine, as far as the things that I starred, I have more in the feminine qualities, which were earth, nature, protector, home, and healing. And in my masculine qualities, I resonate with strength, defender, and power. And for my role models of the divine feminine, I have a background spirituality kind of combination between Sufism, Wiccanism. I think I get a lot of my influence from Wicca as far as what's male and female, because in my divine feminine role models, I have the goddess. Um, and then also, I had a godmother when I was a child. Both of my parents kind of struggled with their femininity. So I found it through my godmother. And then my role models with male or divine masculine were God, the Green Man, the Horned God, and so one of my personal role models is a friend that I have named Tom. So yeah, I actually I I feel like I embody both male and female, but from this activity, I've found that I do seem to have more connection with feminine divine qualities, and actually that kind of resonates with my like background. As a child, I was very feminine, and I got pushed into my masculinity, and then I kind of came back in the middle, so to speak. But I had a lot of rejection from masculinity as a child, and I think that kind of resonates with why I feel more connected with the divine feminine. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm learning so much from everyone's shares. Thank you for sharing. Gaby, are you willing to come on screen? Can I pin you? You're welcome to unmute.
You know, I really related, Travis, to some of the things you said. And I was
Gaby,
thinking,
can I bring you on screen?
please.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
It's not working.
Uh-oh. No, you're on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We see you.
That the masculine and the feminine and the divine parts of it, it really depended on what part of my life, you know, what age I was. I also grew up, I was born in Indonesia, which is Asian. And then I grew up till I was 14 in Europe, in Holland, and then moved to California. So there was very subtle differences between masculine and feminine in those cultures.
Mhm.
Now that I'm an elder, I'm just one of my role models is I just love looking at older women, you know, like especially if they're Native American or they just have such beauty. And that I feel that's more me now than it was, say, when I was an executive director and I felt like I had to live more into masculine. That was just expected. But because of that, I also felt very not seen as a woman. You know, I was seen as an object as a woman, but not as, say, a strong woman or I had to have these masculine. You know, I grew up in the 60s and 70s when we were really struggling with what is feminine. And it wasn't accepted by most of our culture unless you were Marilyn Monroe, you know.
Mhm.
And so there hasn't been a lot of talk about sexuality, but I'm really noticing as I did this how different it was to be someone who wanted to get married, you know, wanted a partner, wanted to be attractive, or someone now, even though I still would like a partner, it's just not as sexual as now it's affection and kindness. And I love the protection part of the divine masculine. And I also had Jesus as my role model, which kind of surprised me. But it's more like Jesus the Christ,
Mhm.
not the martyr, not the. And I also had Pope Francis, which actually Pope Francis and Obama. I just saw
Right.
I just saw a photograph of the two of them together, from some years ago. And I just went, whoa, those are two role models for me in terms of masculinity. Um, and then I had a dream about, actually, it was on April Fool's Day. And I was with a group of humans, and we were in a creative project, and we were divided into groups of four. I don't know if they were men or women, I don't remember. But we were supposed to, there were all these canvases laid out, and we were supposed to do paintings, just expressive paintings. And when it was my turn to decide what I wanted to paint, I wanted to paint the sacred feminine, and I painted that on one canvas, and then I did the sacred masculine on the other canvas, and then I put them together, and I put a big heart that overlapped both of them, and that just felt so right, like there was an integration going on that I've not had in my life before. And even the colors, the masculine right side was very more darker colors, the feminine was more pastel, but then it all kind of merged in the heart. So it's been a real interesting journey, especially now that I'm in my 70s, it's changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
What I wanted to ask you, Deborah, you always talk about how there's some Native American definition of masculine and feminine. Can you tell us that story again? Because I never remember all the words.
Yes. So it's a Native American proverb that I put it in the book, and it is, and the publisher, I had heard that it was a Cherokee proverb, and they couldn't confirm Cherokee, so we called it Native American, and I just put a footnote that if it is Cherokee, I want to make sure to give credit where credit is due, but I can't prove it. So, but it is a Native American proverb. It says, the highest calling of the woman is to lead a man to his soul so as to unite him with source. The lowest calling of the woman is to seduce the man, lead him astray, and leave him wandering. The highest calling of the man is to protect the woman so she is free to walk the earth unharmed. The lowest calling of the man is to ambush the woman and force his way upon her. So one of the things I state this in the book, and one of the like basic premises of the book is whether or not you believe that proverb as, something that is true. I think of it really in terms of the inner feminine and masculine, and how we hold ourselves and connect with our divinity is really how I use that, because we all have both feminine and masculine within us. And, even in relationship, right? You're going to have a blend of masculine and feminine that are coming together as two blends, and how they merge together. Well, I mean, if you just look at our culture, and this is one of the, actually, it's right here on the page, from what I wrote about the cultural versus the divine. If you look at our culture really aligns more with the lower expression. The lower expression of the woman is to seduce, lead a man astray, leave him wandering. The lower expression of the man is to ambush the woman and force his way into her life and, bring harm. So our culture kind of, hangs out in that lower expression. And the whole premise of the book is that we want to reframe our masculine and feminine so that we are aligned more with the higher expression. The higher expression being the higher expression of the feminine is to lead the masculine to source or to his soul so as to reunite with source. The highest calling of the masculine is to protect the feminine so she is free to walk the earth unharmed. And we'll do a little just a little, positioning exercise with that as we close up today, because I really have, in sitting with this, we've traditionally held feminine as the left and masculine as the right. And in really, like playing with this on the level of the inner feminine and inner masculine, I start to really feel the inner feminine as that core place where we align, that center that we come to connect with source and to really tap into the soul and reunite with source. That is the feminine. And then the masculine, which protects that inner, so that as we move out into the world, we're protecting the highest light, and we're able to move from there and to act from there, and to be in the world from that place with that protection around it. So we'll do a little practicing alignment with that before we end today.
That sort of feels like my paintings, my two paintings,
Yes.
and end up in a heart in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gaby. Let's see. And Carol, I'm going to come to you next. Is it okay to bring you on to pin you on the screen?
I'm feeling more incognito today.
Okay. All right. We can hear you.
Yeah. I was just, I don't know, stuff that has been said since then, like that proverb, Deborah, was very meaningful to me. Because when I wrote down the feminine and the masculine first descriptors, they really weren't very different from one another. I mean, feminine, nurture, powerful, holding, carrying, seeing all, warrior, teacher, empathy, and I had some others too, but in masculine, fixer, supporter, strong, protector, seer, helper, wisdom, builder, helpful. I mean, and then some other words, but they were they were both very strong characteristics. So I wasn't getting any kind of damsel, knight.
Oh, nice. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So I mean,
Holding
I just
space.
didn't get that. And so because I think of women as like fierce, and men at their best are powerful and supportive, or actively in support of, and I looked at, and I want to say, I looked at, for role models, I looked at Jesus in the masculine, a friend of mine named John who's in heaven, my dad, Pope Francis also, and Jimmy Carter. And then for the females, I did have Mother Mary, but I just consider Mother Mary kind of unattainable. I mean, her level of, like, as I'm reading all of, a lot into her teachings and stuff, it's like, well, that is so far, that's just great and so unattainable for me. But at this time, but I thought of Mother Hildegard of Bingen, and my grandmother, my dad's mother, and another friend in heaven. I even thought of Gail King.
Yeah.
But so all of this is how I really see it. And my dad was empowering, but I've honestly been living without that divine masculine in my life for a long time, right? So in my marriage, it's not that at all. It's more it's more of a, it's just not that at all. It's more of a destructive thing and an unappreciative thing instead of an honoring and uplifting thing. So I find that even though, thank God, for part of my life and part of my standing on earth, I am, as I described, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, but I see the feminine as powerful. And I love Earth Mother too, because I hadn't written that down, and I absolutely love Earth and Earth Mother, because that to me is as nurturing and powerful and protect is perfection. But my conditioning in relationship to my husband now, and my brothers who tend to see, well, one of my brothers just scooted off to heaven 2 weeks ago, and my beloved Buddy Bird did as well. Beanie Bird is still here with me, but Buddy Bird has moved on within 2 days of my brother. But my conditioning with the other brother who's still on earth and my husband, and it makes me live smaller, because in order to not get in trouble or not get the ire of somebody, having to live smaller and more carefully and not be as big and bright as I would be out in the world almost with anybody else. And I don't like it at all, but I live that way as a mode of self-protection. I don't want to continue living this way. It's not what I want for my future at all. Put it in the prayers. There's a prayer, there's a request. Can't see my emotions, but I'm throwing it into the circle.
Thank you.
So I think they see me smaller, I behave smaller. It's not who I am, not how I see myself, but the conditioning sucks, and the way you stay safe. And I also thought, the feminine that some were mentioning, the feminine, which when in my younger years, I did makeup and hair, not excessively, just to beautify myself, and fashion and whatnot, and always cared. But I really don't give a shit about any of that stuff anymore. I can still appreciate somebody who's done up and think, oh, how nice. I'm not interested in it. To me, it's like a mask. And but I also don't know at this point that feminine thing is a turnoff to me. It's like it is going into that stereotypical minimizing of somebody. And why does somebody have to put on more to be why do you have to change how you look or how tall you are, blah, 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 to be who you are? And so it turns me off. But there's also another part of it that didn't used to bother me, but would bother me a lot now, is I don't want to attract any kind of sexual attention. I don't want, and as part of that is early trauma and even trauma through the marriage. I don't want to attract it at all. And if somebody comes on to me that way, I'm going to head for the hills. You can say I'm pretty and be smart, but don't do the other stuff. So I'm saying all this because it's complex, And I guess that's sort of a complete sharing, but I also liked when somebody referred to men as the protector. I think that's optimally,
And the defender.
that's super duper true. And I've known it in my life, and it's super duper true. And it's true both directions, because that is a feminine and a masculine quality. But so I don't know what to make of all this tonight, but that's what I offer back to you.
Thank you, Carol. Beautiful share. And I mean, honestly, so on point with the book, isn't it, Viva?
That's what I was gonna say. It's just the sharing that has gone on tonight has been so rich in so many ways. So I do want to thank all of you, and I'm sorry, Deborah, I didn't mean to jump over top of you there.
Please do. Yeah.
But
You want to share?
I'm feeling very enriched. And part of that is because I think that there are so many pieces that I can relate to. And Carol, I think your share is so much of what I've been experiencing as I've been reading through the book. So, I encourage you when it comes out to make sure you get your hands on it, because it reflects on so much of what you just said. And it weaves in things like, how the story of Adam and Eve weaves into the perceptions that we have over masculine and feminine, and the way that we've brought that into our culture, you know, and again, those lower and higher perspectives. I won't go into all that. You're going to get it in the book. But Gabby too, is it Gaby? I'm sorry, Gaby.
Maybe.
Um, I also am at that point in my life that everything is changing. And so when I was looking at those reflections, it's like what I used to think of as feminine is very different than the way I feel about it now. And it was beautiful for me to see, and this has been shared as well, to see that there's in my perceptions, there's this equalizing that's happening, but with different qualities. It's like so the feminine, as I was sitting in, you know, the what it is I'm aspiring to is both strong and gentle, you know, and but I see that same thing in the masculine. And my dad was very heavy-handed masculine in his when I was a young child, and especially through my teenage years, because you know the heavy hand was there to control me, right? But in his later years, and you know, and as I moved into the ability to relate to him in a different way, I was able to see that balance of I mean, there was this big old teddy bear underneath of there that I never saw when I was a kid, right? But it came out
Mhm.
later. So what was interesting to me was the role models that came up for me were people who are living into their truth. So, you know, like somebody mentioned humor, and I'm like, Jim Carrey came out for me. And it's like, you know, there's a lot of humor there, but man, is that guy deep. He has got some stuff to share. So I don't know if you've seen his addresses, like at college graduation speeches and that kind of stuff. Some of the teachings that he brings through are just beautiful. And so, but the humor is part of it. You know, it's like this ability to laugh at life until you know and yet I have that same role model from my mother. My mom and I laughed all the time, and it was about life. It was about our humanity. It was about how ridiculous we are as human beings, and that ability to laugh at ourselves in the process of that. And so it's just that for me has just been this very interesting reflection, because if I go to what I originally perceived as cultural, it was a sort of this ugly mix around the feminine of, you know, um, what I thought I was supposed to be
Mhm. Mhm.
versus being true to myself. So anyway, I really wanted to say thank you all for sharing, because it really has added to my inner reflections on all of this.
Can I PS something?
Sure.
The PS, and maybe I already said it, is, you know, the toxic masculinity I do see. I see it in my home. I see it in the world. I do see it, but I don't identify it as masculinity. I just identify it as toxic
Yeah.
or something else, but not male, except in terms of just whatever, but not true masculinity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love the way
Thank you.
that Deborah talks about that, you know, both here and in the book, is, you know, the lower expression and the higher expression. Because it, you know, that lower expression can get pretty ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, whether it's masculine or feminine, and, you know, this, you know, one of the things, and BJ, I'm going to come to you in just a second. But one of the things that you know, with Carol, I think it was you that said that women can be fierce. You know, we have that vasopressin hormone. You know, the two love hormones, the oxytocin and the vasopressin. Oxytocin is the one that just like, you know, and I have also not given birth to a child, but the you know, when you have just gone through all of that pain, and then you can just feel flooded with the love. But the oxytocin is that bliss, that love, that, you know, that really connects us. The vasopressin is I call it the mama tiger hormone, and that's the one that says, and if you touch a hair on my child's head, I will totally take you out. You know, so we have that, which is the fierce protector and the defender of that which we love and care about. And you know, so we see both of those in feminine and masculine, and they're, you know, in the beautiful highest expression of ourselves. And so I love that you brought that fierceness, and I think it was Travis that said the defender for the masculine. I'm really learning a lot from your shares. So thank you. Okay, BJ, can I pin you?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all. I'm really enjoying these shares. And one of the things that came up during the shares was our framing of masculine and feminine. And what do we do when we have an animal, a pet dog, and we call it a he? And so we say, oh, isn't he this? And then if you have a female dog, you go, oh, so it's funny how we try to use that framework to describe our animals. And so I was thinking about all the animals, the cows that are mothers and are protective, and the other males that are protective. And so I was just kind of expanding it into the animal kingdom, and seeing if that gives me any more reflection on what terms I want to use to myself, for myself. So thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah, thank you. I also had animals coming up in my first one, in the like what the cultural, what do you see as feminine, what do you see as masculine? I was kind of, you know, um uh tapping into some of the animal um things there as well. And it's so funny that you say that about the cats and dogs. I live in a household with 2 dogs and 2 cats. And I have like had to train myself. The 2 dogs are female, and then with the cats, there's one female and one male. And it like at first, especially when this little kitten came, I was calling the cats she and the dogs he. It's not true to their gender, but it was just like these are the he's, these are the she's, and I had to laugh at myself because that's like, oh, interesting. Okay, I'm gonna unpin you, and Halima, pin you again.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that when you mentioned about the fierce tiger or lion, if you touch a hair on, my son's head or whatever, I recognize that place where I did that with my late husband. I
Mm-hmm.
remember protecting him. Later on they found out a little bit more about his upbringing, but I remember defending him to my kids ad infinitum that he didn't really know how to socialize. He didn't really learn some of the same skills because of some trauma that he had growing up. And it wasn't until, unfortunately, as he was, or fortunately, in his passing stages, they got to see the fullness of it. So I just really, really resonated with that. And also, I want to say that, it just like shot out at me like a spark that if I could just follow the highest of what is for the man to lead to his soul. And I experienced that, alhamdulillah. I really had a blessing with that. I was very fortunate. And it's actually hard to meet somebody now because of that standard, which isn't a bad thing. When I think about it, at the same time, that's really it. Somebody who, is going to travel in their soul and their spirit to source. And that is exactly what happened. Like I didn't even, like I knew that, but now like really sitting with that, like, oh my God, that is actually what happened. He didn't necessarily adopt Sufism and have a Sufi name or whatever, but his heart was soft and gentle. And, you know, his connection to God just got stronger from where he had started from. It was incredible. And I'm really just like sitting in the marvel and the awe of that. And it really is such a simple guidepost for next relationship and what I'm willing to put up with and what I'm not.
Yeah.
It makes boundaries. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. And these experiences help us to really learn who we are, what our values are, right? And that's we learn our values. Gaby, I'm bringing you back up. All right. And then after this, we'll do a little closing exercise. So go ahead, Gaby.
And this little story just came up. I think it was in response to what Carol was saying. The most recent person that I dated for a little bit, he was able to say to me, I'm really looking for a damsel in distress. And I went, oh, that's not going to work because first of
Right.
all, I'm not a damsel and I'm not in distress, but I was so grateful that he was able to say that to me because it made it very clear that no, 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 I'm not that, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that was just a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, Gaby. Are you complete with that share?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Thank
My
you.
my cat is complete with that share.
Oh, well, that's what's most important. Yeah. So this has really been enlightening, and it's I'm really learning a lot from it. And, the more that we can look into these things, this is, how we really come to know ourselves and know, when we get this introspection, we can really develop, like, what is my core value system? What is it that I want? What is it that I don't want? What is it that, I really want to, as Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. And it really does begin with that, with really discovering what is the change that you wish to be, and be that, and move through the world in that way. And, so we kind of said, was that last week where we were talking about, regardless of what happens, tomorrow's never promised. We don't know what the day holds, but, what I feel is most important for me is that at my time, at the end of my days, that I go out knowing that I lived aligned with my integrity, that I feel like I was in integrity, and that I held true to my convictions, and, that I loved from that place, that I exuded love and compassion from there. So, Habiba, do you want to share anything? And then I'll just do a closing exercise for us.
I feel like we're ready to wrap. I appreciate it, but I mean, I have lots of things that I could say, but I feel like it's time.
Right? I know we could go on and on. I
It's
really do.
stirring all kinds of things in me. I will say this, the whole mother thing that you mentioned, and the fierceness is definitely something that I hadn't really put together in that way. So it was really helpful because it is something that I've experienced with my children clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It's that container of absolute nurturing, and yet there was one time that my ex-husband smacked my younger son because he was trying to change his diaper and he wouldn't be still. And Yusuf was a fighter at that age. He was just like, all over the place. And it was like, and the
Yeah.
energy that came, and I just looked at him and I said, you ever do it again, I'm taking the children and you will never see them again. It was just like, don't. And that was it. But it was like that energy was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So, but it was from this absolute love. And so I wasn't nasty about it. I wasn't, so I think for me, that's where this balancing of the strength and the gentleness, um, I think that we can walk in both of those in love, in a way that, for those of you who know the Sufi path, Sidi would talk about, be the sword, and sometimes that sword is very important. But when we bring the sword with love, it's not, it doesn't cut the same way
Yeah.
as if we're coming in from anger or whatever else. So it's just, yeah, I think there's much, much more conversation that we can have.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, go ahead.
perhaps next week we will be able to continue with some of this. And BJ, acknowledging your share there as well. About, we think of the times in our lives when we have like experienced these things. Yeah. And so next week we are going to do more with this. It's going to be about balancing the masculine and feminine within. So, but I'll end with a taste of that today. I mentioned that, like, that feminine is being that place that reunites us with source, that place that we come home to, that when we go into meditation and we connect with source, when we really, however, the highest light, the inner wisdom, that, inner place of stillness and connection, where we can really like receive our downloads and, our, really feel that place of peace and connection. Like, that is to me going into that place of the feminine, and then really feeling how the masculine like supports and protects and like how the masculine supports and protects that place. And it's like, when the masculine energy is fed and renewed and restored from that source energy, right? And it's like it builds the masculine energy to become an even stronger protector and defender of that place of like honor and reverence and stillness inside of ourselves, so that we really can move from that place. So let's, in closing today, with love and gratitude for each and every one of you, and for that power that holds us together as one, that let's just make an intention for those things that we identified as, whether we call it toxic or the lower expression, or, the things that came up for us that we see are, imprinted in the psyche that we might not want to continue to hold. Let's just call on our unseen support team, however you identify that, source, angels, prophets, saints, perfected ones, healers, helpers, guides, teachers, whoever you call on to support you from the unseen realms, and just ask for their support and their help, and make your intention that like you just kind of pull those things out and put them in your hands and lift them up and offer them, and let them be taken out of your imprinting, right? Out of your programming, so that your consciousness can like make space for that divine expression that you really do want to aspire to live by and to embody. So as that is releasing from you, just let that go. Thank you for the teachings you have brought, and release it and let it just be taken from you, pulled from, and released from your psyche, from your imprinting, from your programming. And then tapping back into that place of that which you did find, of the traits from the divine feminine and divine masculine that you do want to embrace and embody, and let those really take up the space of your core and become like a strong pillar of your consciousness, and inviting that to just like find its right place and balance at the center of your being. And just notice, like, is there like a part of that moves toward the inner, and a part of it that is like the defender protector? Just let that take its rightful place inside of you, and let that land where it may, and let's kind of be in a witness and in a gratitude of how that lands within you. Letting those feminine traits, if you will, archetypal feminine, move toward the center, and the archetypal masculine to move toward the place that surrounds it and holds it and protects it. And just notice how they really do, they really do feed each other. And when they're in that right relationship and balance, how they build each other and strengthen each other. And this is strengthening you in your core as well, God willing. And next week, we're going to be doing more of balancing divine feminine and divine masculine within. So we're going to be more of really bringing in, doing more of bringing in those traits that we really do aspire to, and letting them find, and I'll give it just a little blurb. There is a teaching by Ibn Arabi, the Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi, about the masculine and feminine. And, he says there's no such thing as 100% masculine or 100% feminine anywhere, anyway. That, your soul comes into the body, and if it goes one direction, it's more feminine, the other direction, it's more masculine. But the whole thing is a spectrum, and it can be anywhere on that spectrum, including the 50-50 point, and so, like, you're not created as 100% of anything. The soul is gender fluid. God has no gender and yet contains all gender. And as we land where we may along that spectrum when the soul comes into the body, and there are so many aspects of self on top of that. That's some aspects of ourselves may just, like all the various aspects come in and they spray along that spectrum. And so everybody's got their unique blend of masculine and feminine characteristics. And this is why I feel like in order to be true to self, letting go of the imprinting of, of what our culture. And it's interesting that, like, my masculine and feminine at the beginning was just like I just watched a television show, and it's like, oh, this is the stereotypical male on the sitcom, and this is the stereotypical woman on the sitcom. And maybe I've been in front of the TV too much, but it's like, that imprinting. And they're just archetypes that help us to maybe we can, they can add to our self-exploration and help us to laugh at ourselves at time. And, but to really be true to ourselves, we have to hold it in its, hold it as a from a witness place, not as an embodied state. So, okay. And with that, I'll say thank you and appreciate you. You're welcome. We hope you'll join us next week, same time, same place. And you're welcome to invite your friends to join us as well. And thank you very much for being here. Any closing remarks from you, Habiba?
Nope. I think we're good. I can't wait for y'all to experience this book. I can tell you that. That's my
me
own
too.
closing remark.
Me too.
All right. Blessings to all of you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.